The Atomic Real Estate Show, bringing you the real estate of real estate. Brought to you by Danny Bennett Productions in partnership with Direct Subs.
Today we're filming at 548 Cathedral Road, which is a 4-bed, 2.5-bath single home with a driveway and finished basement in the Andorra Roxbury section of Philadelphia. It is listed on the market for $650,000 by my wife, Jen Cessna, and the house is completely renovated by myself, CCS.
Hey everyone, Ryan Dolan here with Nick Cessna. We're back with another episode of the Atomic Real Estate Show. We have our friend and guest, Charles Franzone. He is the owner of Franzone's Pizzeria and Sports Bar in Conshohocken, PA. So Charles, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And so we're going to look and say, why is Charles Franzone from the pizza shop on a real estate show, right? So well, I'm curious because, you know, now that I talk with Nick, you guys work out at the gym together. He is explaining to me your model of acquiring real estate and running the business out of the real estate you own. So we want to kind of chat about some of the pros, cons, why you decided to go that way, and kind of how the business got started. I mean, everybody's familiar with Franzone's Pizza. It's excellent. My son William's favorite pie, for sure. He's going to be begging for it tonight, and he's going to be pissed that you didn't bring any on the show. But yeah, man, we appreciate you coming on here, and thank you so much. So I guess our first question is, how did this Franzone empire start, the pizza empire?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I'm third generation, so I'm almost as much of a spectator as everyone else. My grandfather and his two brothers started this back in 1955. They had their uncle had a cheesesteak shop, D. John's Cheesesteak Shop in Bridgeport.
Were they World War II vets?
No.
Okay.
No.
So they're just
one of them was in the Air Force. A couple of them were, military guys.
So they're all starting life right after World War II.
Yeah, pretty much. My grandfather at the time was a produce salesman, worked for a farm. He grew up on a farm, so that was all he knew. Him and his brothers decided to get into business together, bought the cheesesteak shop. They hired a guy from Scranton, PA to teach them how to make pizzas because they felt like we're gonna go with pizza.
Did they choose Scranton because of that?
They knew that
whole
Scranton,
like square pizza stuff.
I think it was people who know that Scranton is a
What is
hub
that
for
little?
pizza.
What is that little town that's right outside of Scranton where they're all at? Like they did the pizza.
Dunmore area.
Well,
like a lot of my and my Scranton guys listen to this. I can't believe we're talking about Scranton pizza.
My wife's gonna be pissed.
Dude,
I
they
don't know
swear
what
by
this is.
pizza and wings, and their pizza is really, really good. The sheet pizza that they make.
They call them by sheets.
Yeah,
you buy it by a sheet.
And your wife's from there. Yeah,
She loves the pizza up there.
yeah.
Yeah, so, they kind of went right to the source and had a guy come down, teach them how to do it. The idea was, hey, let's be polarizing. So we're going to do a sweet sauce and people are going to love us or they're going to hate us, but they're going to know us. And that pretty much leapfrogged them into a successful business up through the 70s. And in 73, my grandfather decided to open a second location in Conchi. They rented space in the shopping center where Butera's barbershop is and the Weiss is, and decided, we're going to have two locations. One brother will run one brother will run the other. Each of them had kids at this point, so they had like a little army of Franzone kids going back and forth and just working where they needed to work, doing what they had to do. Now, Bridgeport at that point owned their real estate. Conshohocken did not. In 99, they built the location that we're at now in Conshohocken.
So they went from 73 to 99 in Conshohocken
99.
with renting a spot?
Correct. And then in 99, they bought right behind where the old Montgomery Brothers is, for those who know, but now that's behind the TD Bank. It was a tire shop. They completely leveled the whole thing. They put fast signs there first, actually. Got fast signs up and running, collected some income that way as they built and fit out their restaurant.
So that was do they own fast signs or
It's all one building.
No, but I mean, are they involved in the,
No.
Okay, so they rented it out.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct. And the owner of Fast Signs is still the owner now. That was back in 2000.
The original tenant.
The original tenant, yep. And if you ask him, he'll tell you that he was at that location before Franzone's was there. And then the strip mall behind. So they found themselves a little plot of land decided to kind of double down on themselves, which, I truly feel like if you're going to go from a restaurant that rents in your space to now owning your space, that's what you're doing. You're kind of doubling down. You're definitely betting on yourself. And in my opinion, it's a much bigger risk. Hey, listen, if you go belly up and you rent the space, what are you going to do? You're going to walk out. And,
you got nothing to fall back on.
Go ahead,
right?
sue me. I got nothing. Sure. But if you own now, you have to make the mortgage payments and you have to keep up on the building and the roof
taxes.
Goes. Correct. I mean, as you guys know, that list doesn't end.
So was that Dad's decision in the '99 to say like, hey, when we scale, we're going to own the bricks here. We're going to own.
I think that it was definitely a group decision. At that point, my grandfather had definitely been getting involved in real estate. They were buying some property in the area. They had properties in Norristown, residential things. Then they got into commercial up and down Ridge Pike and in the Conshohocken area. And I think that at that point, they realized that it was in the cards for them. And again, sitting here in third generation, I'm grateful they did that. Sure. And, listening to your guys' podcast, I've definitely related to some of the content about, don't put your kids at risk, but there's an element of generational wealth that can be established through real estate. And I think that is a major component of what makes this area so great, because the real estate is so strong. It only gets stronger. And I think that, as I kind of reflect on my 10 years of professional experience, as I kind of have more and more conversations with my father about his experiences, the conversations I was able to have with my grandfather over the last 10 years before he passed in 2020, it was kind of all about real estate. I remember one of his famous quotes was, you don't fall in love with the bricks, you fall in love with the deal. And sometimes the best deals you make are the ones you don't. I've also been able to witness some of the shortcomings, which, we're all going to have them. Every business does. And it's, as everybody kind of knows, it's really what happens after that. COVID was obviously a major hurdle for everyone. Yeah.
Especially the food service industry got crippled. And,
I think about the businesses and the food guys that weren't built for that. Again, as a pizzeria owner, I was very lucky and blessed that takeout and delivery is natural. It's what we do. It's what we've done since day one, before we had a huge footprint and before we had a sports bar and, 75-person dining room. Before that, it was, maybe 50 people. But other than that, it was takeout and delivery.
Did that keep you guys afloat?
100%. It was more than keeping us afloat. It was the whole engine.
Now with the alcohol sales, were you guys able to do takeout alcohol sales as well?
Yeah, we were doing takeout alcohol sales, did the cocktails to go, which was...
So you shifted, you pivoted and sold
we
products.
Were certainly lucky enough that our staff has been around us, since I can remember. And so everyone kind of there was never really a question of if we were going to be able to do it. It was just, how are we going to do it? And as you guys know, during that era, it was just like, check your phone and see what the rule is today.
Yeah,
what's the blueprint?
It was a crazy time. Well, now I'm thinking of it from this standpoint, because any time you go on Franzo's right off Ridge Pike and Conchi, it's mobbed. How many employees do you have at that location?
We have about 30 right now.
So that had to be scary in itself. Like, you got 30 families right here that could be affected just overnight. Yeah. And, well, now you own the building, you have the liquor license, you have other ways to make money. Your business isn't like, hey, we're closing the door, you're a renter, which happened to a lot of these places. A lot of the landlords wouldn't allow them to operate business out of there.
Absolutely.
Right?
And you even look at some of the higher end businesses. I mean, how does a place like Fleming's or Ralph's come around and say, oh, we're going to do delivery now. We've never done delivery, but we're going to try to deliver a $50 steak. It's interesting to think about what some of those guys must have really gone through, because we think of them in a glorified manner of, this is a treat for us. But what did those guys go through? You know, like I said, like I feel very lucky. I feel very blessed to be in the position that I'm in. You know, and in the pizzeria, sports bar, sandwich business, there's a very strong market constantly for,
Now,
for that.
third generation business owner, I mean, you had to have employees there that still work there that were there when you were a child, probably.
Before I was born.
And then, like, the thought of having to, like, lay those people off, and you probably had to come up with all sorts of stuff to, like, you know, change shifts. Some people like, hey, you come in on this day, you come in to keep everybody afloat, because they're like family members. They're not employees anymore.
No doubt about it. And to tell you the truth, Nick, there was never a question of if we were going to keep them around. It was just, what are we going to have to do and how are we going to do it?
Hell yeah, I love it. So for you, that wasn't even, hey, the business may fail, may not. You knew you were going to power through. You guys had a strong base already, kept all these people, and you've actually grown throughout the process.
Yeah, obviously hindsight's 20/20, and I can sit here confidently now. And there were definitely some scary moments. There were definitely some times where, you know, we see the health department walking in, or you see at that point during COVID, state police is coming around, and you know they're dangling your liquor license over your head, and they're holding you by the throat, and they want to make sure that what the CDC says is what you guys are doing. And I think that it was scary because the businesses that were functioning at a higher level than the neighbor became targets, because now it was like, well, are you doing everything right? What are they doing?
Yeah.
Right.
People complaining on other people. And
I don't think there was
stuff.
as much of people complaining. I just, you know, it was so unprecedented. It was so scary. It was so fickle. It was, again, every day you're looking at a new headline, a new rule, a new this, a new that, and it just created a environment of insecurity that we've never experienced. I've never experienced.
Of course. So you're relatively kind of new at this point with your piece of the business at that point. I mean, you've worked in the shops coming up, but as your ownership stake grew, it's right
new.
around the new.
It was a very new experience. It was 9 months after we renovated our bar and doubled the size of it. We went from 29 seats in our bar to 70 in August of 2019.
Impressive.
And
then it just shuts down.
8 months later, you know, it was like, wow, what we just spent the last 2 years building and curating and investing in is no longer a factor right now. It is just completely on the back burner. So yeah, it was definitely scary. It was definitely insecure. However,
your dad had to be like a nervous wreck during that. Like,
yeah.
We just invested all this money.
Yeah, I mean, we both were. And, you know, it was every day. Jumping up in the morning, we're running to Lowe's to get plastic. We're running to Home Depot to see what they have. And you're seeing, like, other business owners there doing the same thing. And it was just, it was apocalyptic.
Yeah,
It's
a great word to put.
It was really, really interesting. I do think that, like anything else, the experience that came out of it will definitely carry us a long way. You almost, you know, you don't want to speak too soon, but you look around and say, well, what if the bar can't function and people can't be in a restaurant, but we were able to survive that? We feel pretty good moving forward that, you know, we're in a good place to be successful.
So now coming out of that, you guys grew, more successful, hire more people. So now you got to feel kind of almost indestructible at this point. It certainly makes you a better business owner, better, you know, manager of people, obviously.
I think it gives you more tools.
Yeah.
Which in that sense can make you feel more secure. We did a second renovation after COVID because, again, in the bar, it was like, you know, you open those bar doors finally and people are ready to go.
People are thirsty.
Yeah. So we did a second renovation after that, which was awesome. And again, we're extremely grateful to our customers, because without them, obviously, this isn't a conversation. But me personally, from my seat, like I said, sometimes I take a seat as a spectator. Sometimes I'm in there and I'm kind of on the ground floor. And as a spectator, you see different things, like, you know, your old man who's 62 years old and he's there at 4:30 in the morning. So by the time I get up at 6, I got 4 text messages, and it's go to Lowe's to get this, stop at Home Depot for this. I got screenshots, aisle numbers, and bay numbers for what he needs, because the oven door broke, the sink's leaking, the toilet's clogged. We got to spray paint the parking lot, and the fence around the dumpster needs to be redone. And the health department will be here sometime this month, so we got to get everything straightened out.
Sounds like a fun morning.
So, again, there's these times where there's these ebbs and flows where you're like, man, we're cruising, things are cooking, and it's coming pretty easy. And then there's these times where it's like, oh, here's the other side of the coin. Here's where owning your bricks comes into play, because you're not calling your landlord. You're the one running down there at 2 a.m. when something's not running right. And for people who, for listeners that may be interested in the food and restaurant business, it's a wonderful business. It's hard work. You better be a people person. And I think what I would say is, the debate between renting and owning is nature versus nurture. I don't think it's ever going to end. I think that it's one of those things where it's going to be the right situation for this person, and this is going to be the right situation for this person. If you look at the major chains, most of them rent.
And that's by choice, right? The major chains.
I would imagine.
So what about your philosophy, what your family's philosophy? It said, we want to own as much as we can. We want to own as much because you have these long-standing tenants. Again, you can, during COVID, which was insane, you can pivot, make your own kind of, not rules, but you don't have to go right out the flagpole.
Yeah, I agree. I think COVID's a good example. It's a place to look at to say, like, what's worst case, what's out of my control.
Sure.
Did that kill any of the businesses that you guys rent to in your real estate?
It did hurt our Manayunk business pretty good.
I mean, the business, obviously Fast Signs is still there, they're doing well, but your grandfather, your father, you guys own buildings. Were there any other businesses that you guys rented to that got crushed? That went to nowhere, or did they all survive?
They all survived.
That's fantastic.
They grinded.
Awesome.
That's amazing.
The ones that I can think of that I would say are still renting right now and are still doing business right now. It was just like us. It wasn't easy. They were on their phone every day. They were trying to figure out what the next thing to do. How were we going to get an inch today? And if we got that inch, what were we going to do with it? How is it going to help? And I think that those business owners are the people that, I look up to in a sense of not effing easy.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Now, Grandpop started in the 50s. They owned the bricks there. They had the pizza shop. They then expand into Conchi in the 70s. And then Dad decides, hey, now Dad's taken over at this point, right? We want to buy our location and upgrade here, and we're going to own. We're no longer going to rent, and we're going to have the main Franzone's location. Then, when do you get involved in the Manayunk location?
So 2014, I was out of school now for 2 years. I'm working in sales. Was actually all but moved out to California for a sales role. And
You got that Cali look going on.
First
night day, he's ready for Cali.
There are days in the restaurant business that you can look at California and think there might have been something else out there for you.
So you were going to go to California for a job. How did Pop and your dad, how did they handle that news? Were they kind of supporting you, but were they also damn, we kind of wish this kid was around here doing this and taking it over from us?
If they felt that way, they never showed it. They were just as true to themselves as they ever are. They were stand up about it. It was, dude, if this is what you want to do, go do it. Good luck, and give it everything you have. It wasn't even a conversation. It was, hey, Dad, I think I'm going to do this. And he said, good luck.
Well, there are guys that took major risk before and listened to their gut and did what they felt was right?
Did you always have a role?
That's how they got there.
Yeah.
Did you always have a role at the restaurant, even as a kid? Hey, you're coming in doing stuff and you're helping Dad, you're helping Grandpa do stuff, and then you worked there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from as far back as my brain goes, on the weekends, I was getting up at 6 a.m. Saturday and Sunday morning with my old man, went down to the shop. He's opening the shop. I'm doing whatever he's telling me to do. Sweeping the parking lot, sweep under the booths, help him out with this, or this refrigerator went down. I need you to get all the dough out, throw it in the trash can, and start a new batch. It was whatever that day called for.
Can we pay you to have our kids show up there at 6 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday and start sweeping up and cleaning
Absolutely.
up? Jesus.
Really?
Absolutely.
6 a.m., could you imagine? Well, you did a lot of that stuff.
I did a lot of that stuff too.
It's a character builder.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'd have to drag Jack out of bed at 6 a.m. to do stuff.
I know all my brothers, we'd be running for the hills if my dad was in my room at 6 a.m. No, it's incredible because, I mean, honestly, as I met you, a couple of years back, like, you seem much older, wise beyond your years. Obviously, I'm sure that comes from grandpop and dad, because you're great with people, obviously, but you had this amazing business acumen to you, and the idea is, your business keeps growing. When I think of pizza shops and when I heard of Franzone's, I thought, again, that was probably just the to-go business back at the time. So you guys scaled into a bar business. That kind of changes the game, right?
It sure does. And again, like I got to continue to reiterate that I'm humbly here to speak, hopefully on behalf of my father and my grandfather. When Nick asked me to do this, I was a little bit hesitant because in no way do I feel as though I'm an expert. In no way am I taking any credit. If anything, I'm speaking on behalf of someone who has benefited from it. So for the people listening that are thinking about if they want to get involved in real estate, in the restaurant business, or in any kind of business, I know Nick has said this in the past, don't put your kids at risk to do it. But if you have a lane to do it in which you think it's truly going to benefit them down the road, if it's done right, the benefits are endless to it. Again, from your grandkids getting up at 6 a.m. on the weekends to work, and how that builds character into, now having the opportunity at 24 years old, 10 years ago, to say, hey, Dad, instead of going to California, I found this building in Manayunk that is multi-use property. It's got 4 residents. It has a pizza shop. It's a sandwich shop right now. I think we can fit it out to a pizza shop. And instead of me going to California next month, this is how I see myself getting involved in the family business.
If you were going to, like, you were almost getting ready to leave, how did that happen? Like, how did that, like, was this something
Are you just that passionate?
Was this something
about
that you were looking into as you were getting ready to go? Or?
Not at all. I can't explain the strike of lightning, the hit over the head, whatever it was. That night out in Manayunk changed my life forever, essentially.
You may have been drinking some white lightning down there.
I was definitely drinking white
sometimes
lightning.
you need that little push. No, but honestly, so it's a great, you're walking down Main Street and you see the shop on the corner. I mean, it's a big building. It's no joke. And businesses there have maybe not done well in the past. It's had to be expensive at the time. And you're like, screw it. Like, I'm not going to Cali, which I think is nuts. But again, your gut's telling you something. Your heart's telling you something.
Yeah, something definitely came over me. I think it's one of those moments that you can look back and say, I think I felt the most myself in that moment. I felt like something hit me that was like, this is where you need to be. This
like
is
an unexplainable event that just like happened.
Without a doubt.
And most humans have those events where like something happens that you can't fucking
explain. You can't explain it. It wasn't. I didn't ask a realtor to bring it to me. Didn't have one conversation with a realtor before that. I had no idea the building. I never saw the building before because I was in Manayunk. But for me, Manayunk was Main Street only at that point in time. I was a country kid. So Crescent Street, I didn't make that left-hand turn. Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a different world underneath there.
So what I remember about seeing that whole building, that whole moment 10 years ago still sticks out to this day.
But it's surrounded by businesses that have been there forever. You got Sorrentino's right down the street. You got the Crescent Inn, which has been there forever.
The tattoo shop.
You got the roofing supply place, which
and
is
you
right
got
by there.
The proper building, which, if anybody knows him, he is meticulous and he is a wonderful real estate guy. I mean, he was as good of a neighbor as I could have had at 24 years old.
Yeah.
And so
you have to pitch that idea to your dad and your grandfather.
Yeah, which honestly I thought was going to be a little harder than it was. I called him up and I said, "Hey, dude, I got a flight in 30 days, but I found this building." And at this point, I didn't understand much of the family finances. It was, hey, if we're able to get this done in the next 30 days, I can see myself getting into the family business this way. And at the end of the day, he was able to make the deal happen. He figured out a way to mortgage a property, did a cash deal 30 days. I went and got a mortgage about a month later to pay him back. And at that point, it was kind of like, all right, what did I just get myself
Yeah, I'm not
into?
going to Kelly. I'm talking to commercial lenders. And
and now I'm staring at hoods and figuring out what size pizza hood do I need, and this wall's got to come down. And
You said it was a lot of easier sale than you thought it would be to them. I think you got the answer to my question earlier of if they actually wanted you to go to California.
I think so too.
yeah, that was it.
Yeah,
How quickly they made that deal
Yeah.
come together. Yeah.
Your dad probably hung the phone up, called your grandpa, was like, "Yeah, Dad, we're doing this." Yeah.
Well, it's great. I
Yeah.
mean, look, it's like kind of grooming you for that moment without actually doing it and putting that pressure on you, allowing you to make your own choice, which I think is unique in itself, because what dad or what grandfather, could pass it to their third generation. Some would take that the wrong way. Like, hey, you're not going anywhere. This is what you need to be doing.
Yeah, and more so, they could have been like, absolutely not. We don't want your hands anywhere near this.
Yeah.
So, I think that I was raised in it. I was born into it. I did my homework sitting at a booth every day. So, it was bred into me from day one. I always kind of knew that. I always felt that. And I think that maybe wanting to do my own thing was a little bit of my own selfish need to make a name for myself in a way that was unrelated to Franzone's.
And make it part of yours.
Right.
So where you're not just like,
Right.
you're not just the grandson and the son working there. You're like, hey, this is mine now too.
Yeah, and I think that when I eventually was, asked to come up in 2019 to rebuild the bar and to kind of take over what I call the big store, was more so based on what I was kind of capable of doing in Manayunk, what I had shown in Manayunk. I felt as though I earned it a little bit that way. And so
Now that building has residential units above as well.
and so,
Did you just have to renovate the whole thing or partial or
yeah, we renovated pretty much the entire restaurant.
what about the units
The
above?
units upstairs were pretty much turnkey. They were probably 10 years old. So the first couple of years it was turnkey, get tenants in there.
Did they come with tenants, the building?
No,
So it was completely vacant.
completely empty.
I prefer it that way. I don't want to
I don't
inherit.
know it any
I don't
other
want to
way.
inherit other
Right.
someone else's headaches.
Now, I don't know it any other way, and you guys probably do, but technically a realtor would probably sell you on the tenants more so than the building.
Some people want it fully occupied. Some people want to buy buildings fully occupied. I prefer the opposite because you're buying something that somebody wants to get out of, right? What are the reasons they want to get out of it? They could be just dishing their headaches off to you. And they wrap this gift up like it's a great, amazing gift that you're going to get. And you're like, oh, this person's a complete asshole that's in here.
And to that point, I think it's interesting now because it was almost blind faith that I went into that with. I hadn't been in the restaurant business in 5 years. I mean, I worked there in college. I worked at the shop in college, bartended a little bit at night when I was doing the sales gig. But I mean, at that point, I'm drawing on just kind of a lifetime of experience of kind of, first level experience. And now I'm going to take a full dive in, 8 miles away from home, which in the restaurant world feels like a long way because if it's your restaurant, you're not leaving. You're not running up to see dad in the morning to get his take on something. You're immersed in it. And then owning the bricks on top of that, on top of being immersed in the fit out, and you're stressing over every inch has to work and what's going to go here, what's going to go there, what's legal, what is up to code. This is what I want, but this is what it says it needs. Going through that whole process and then kind of understanding that, okay, now I got to turn the key and open the business.
All right, so we're integrating ourselves into the business around the 2014. You buy the Manayunk location. So now you have commercial space, going to open up another shop. you have units up top. But you said, to your point, you're not a Manayunk guy. Your home base is Conchie, Bridgeport area. That's where your whole business. So, 8-9 miles down the road, it's a big deal when you're running a business, right? So you're basically got to feel like you're on an island. You living in one of the units up top?
Yeah. So right after we made settlement, I moved into a small 1-bedroom that was a part of the building. Started to fit out, got tenants for the bigger unit, for the 3-bedroom unit.
So you unselfishly chose the smaller unit for the business purposes.
Well, it makes more sense for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we call the other spot the Manayunk Mansion because the place is huge. You'd never know this place exists in Manayunk. So yeah, I took a small 600 square foot 1-bedroom. We were able to rent out the top unit. And at that point, it was from September of 2014 until April of 2015, we were fitting out a restaurant, and I was learning about construction, and I was learning about L&I, and I was learning about the health department, and I was learning about a 200-year-old building in Manayunk and how every drain in Manayunk apparently runs under my building at the bottom of a hill.
Not to mention you're still in the city, so you got to deal with those guys as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it was...
Was it a restaurant before?
It was a sandwich shop. Yes.
What was there? I don't even remember.
Pat and Bobby's was the last that it was before me.
And how long was that closed for?
I don't know, to be completely honest with you.
So what'd you do? You acquired the building. You got a good deal. You saw what you thought was a good deal at the time, and went all in. Said, screw it.
Again, at that point, I'm relying on my old man to tell me if this is a good deal numbers wise. This was like, hey, dude, I got this idea, and if the numbers work for you, let me know if we can do it. And I think that was more or less the conversation of, hey, I want to do this. I see myself getting integrated in the family business this way.
And now, did you pitch it? You were like, this is going to be like my location. Like, I'm going to, like, this is going to be me, guys. I got this. I learned everything I needed to learn from you guys. I got this.
I think so. That's truly how I felt. I don't know if I pitched it that way, but that's definitely how I felt. And I know that he wasn't looking to work anymore. So I know that he wasn't offering his time, to come down there.
And Grandpa definitely wasn't trying to do all that shit at that time, right?
No, Grandpa came down and he walked around and was there 2-3 times a week just checking on things, seeing how it was going, and was a spectator, but, would have stepped in if he thought it was necessary.
Now, was he like giving you tips and stuff like that? Like,
a little bit.
Now, do you think it was at that time your dad's still... Like he's still like
he's grinding away.
He's grinding every day, right? And
he's at the main shop. You got okay.
And Grandpop's more so like just kind of.
Grandpop can't play golf anymore. He's only going to Florida maybe 1 month out of the year as opposed to 4. So he's just around.
Now that was probably the perfect ingredients there, because you have him with all his knowledge, and then I would imagine that at that age, with most men, your relationship with your grandfather, especially in a business, is probably a lot easier than it would be with your dad every day.
Well said. And, it was funny. I look at that time between buying that property and 2019 as that was me going to get my master's. Yeah. That was an opportunity to almost spend every day with my grandfather where he's not tied up working. So he's now playing Monday morning quarterback for my father's business. He's watching me, seeing how I see it. And I think it was cool for him to watch me see my business through my lens. And it was beneficial for me to see what his vision was for my business because of all his experience. And it was to the point where...
You probably got your master's, being in a pizza shop your whole life. Right there, going through the whole construction, acquiring a building, starting a new business. You got your fucking law degree.
Right. It definitely was a lot. But to your point, spending the time with my grandfather was something obviously I can't trade in for anything, wouldn't trade for anything. We drove to Lancaster to look at used ovens because at that, again, I did not know this. You don't buy brand new ovens. Why would you spend $30,000 when all you're buying is a box? When you can replace the parts for $1,000, $2,000. So we drove out to Lancaster to look at used ovens, to look at used dough mixers, sinks, grills, fryers.
Things that could have sunk the business before if you didn't have that, mentorship above you, because you're buying all that stuff new. Now your overhead's out of control, right?
I'd imagine worn-in ovens are probably better anyway, right? Aren't they probably better for taste and everything?
I would agree. And so those little nuances that I picked up from him, and again, just watching him at this point, he's, let's say, around 73, and he is bartering like it is 1940. And we're going to a warehouse, and he is cutting deals for this, cash deal for that. And I'm sitting back like, this is exactly what I needed to see.
Beautiful
Now,
thing.
Franzone, that's an Italian name.
Correct.
Yeah, dude, I did not want to barter with Italian dudes. Old Italian dudes are brutal.
I can imagine.
They beat you the fuck up, dude.
Well, they know what they're going to spend, and they know what they're not going to spend.
I love it. So now with Grandpa, all right, so you had kind of, 60 years earlier, he probably had that same damn vision with the pizza shop or with the steak shop that they were taking over.
Yeah, and I think him and I think he could see the similarities between the two of us.
Yeah, it sounds like it, but it sounds like you pulled a little bit from both. Like you had the business kind of model from Grandpa, but from Dad, it's like, hey, the real estate piece is critical here.
Correct. And, Grandfather obviously reiterated that as well. I think the biggest difference between the two of them was I was catching them at a time where Grandpop's actually a little more macro, and he's like, listen, this is great. You're owning bricks. You're contributing to the pizzeria because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So just having the Franzone's name in Manayunk now, that's good for Conshohocken. Conshohocken's good for Manayunk. So from a restaurant owner standpoint, we like the way this fits. This works.
Plus, the kids who grew up in Conshohocken eating Franzone's pizza, now they're getting out of college. They're moving to Manayunk. They have a piece of home right there that can be delivered to them. So you probably had a built-in customer base right there.
100%.
Dude, and I never had it. So when they moved to Manayunk, I remember when they moved, that was a big deal. I mean, because we've heard about it. We went to school with guys that from the Concha area. But one, you're not venturing up there through Roxborough, Manayunk. There's so many good pizza shops. I had never had Franzone's. I sure as hell never had a sweet sauce. Mm-hmm. So when you guys moved down there, that was kind of a big deal. And I remember it. I mean, the shop was beautiful, by the way. I can still remember it. Absolutely clean. Pizza was totally different from what I was used to. Right. So I was always curious to see how I was going to shake out and how the feedback was, how the locals in Manayunk would be open to that pie, because we never had that style pizza.
And I was nervous too. I mean, again, you think back to high school sports and young sports, like the Roxborough Conchi rivalry is strong.
It's a real thing, yeah.
And you guys do a swirl, and we already have a swirl pie.
Oh,
but
that was Alex's.
But Alex's were on their way out kind of at that time through the old ownership. Now there's new ownerships. Our buddies actually own it.
We came right in at the window where Alex's left. We didn't have to battle with Alex's, thank God.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't a war anybody wanted.
They were a beast at the time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so we kind of filled a void. The timing couldn't have probably been any better. And, to your point, the whole Roxborough Conchi rivalry, introducing this new product to an area that is very set on what they like and what they know, I don't think we could have been welcomed any warmer. Wow. Everybody was great to us. They were thankful that we were there. We were thankful for them. The area, in my opinion, polices itself very well. The neighbors, the neighborhood, they keep each other honest. And, I felt as though we fit in very well down there. As a personality, as what we stood for in business, I think was seamless with what the area respects and demands, which is come in, work hard, sell a good product. If you screw up, make up for it, make it right, and we're back to zero.
That's pretty damn well said about the neighbor. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. I couldn't have said it much better. But so now, kind of overnight, like 30 days, you're going out to Cali, but now you're a business owner, you're a landlord. Right. So you're learning all this stuff kind of on the fly. 100%. What are some of the pros that you thought as of, owning the bricks compared to not owning the bricks? Because that's what a lot of our listeners want to hear, right? They want to know, and look, a lot of people may not be in the position or they may not think they're in the position. So kind of How did that work? Because you said, obviously you had help on the cash acquisition, but you still had to pull a mortgage out, pay people back, right? I mean,
Yeah, 100%. And obviously you're wearing 2 hats minimum. I mean, if you're going in there with the restaurant lens, and let's say you don't own the building, and all you're really coming in to do is say, okay, like, I'm going to need hoods here. I'm going to need this wall to come down. You're kind of just telling somebody what you need. And where I had to go in and kind of say, okay, well, if I can save a few bucks and I can take this wall down and get away with it without L and I figuring it out or without doing too much, you're trying to cut some of these corners as best you can.
I could do a whole week's worth of episodes on pulling the wool over L and I's guys.
To go back to renting versus owning your bricks, I think that, again, it's kind of a tale as old as time. I think there's pros to both. There's cons to both. I think the pro to owning your bricks is you don't really have to ask much permission. And I think that goes a long way in business, especially in the restaurant business, because I think if you talk to 10 restaurant owners, they're going to tell you 10 different ways to do something. And on the other hand, if you rent, I think that it can certainly take the weight off your shoulders. If the roof leaks, all you do is make a phone call and you wait for it to be fixed.
Unless you're in one of those like big restaurants where it's like triple net leases and they handle the entire building and everything. Like the person who owns the land, basically, because they came in and outfitted it the way they wanted to. Like that's some of the best real estate to own, man. 100%. Like that's guaranteed mailbox money.
Totally agree with you. Now, I don't know if we're talking to that market. If we're talking to someone who is sitting there thinking, boy, I make really good juice smoothies at home. I think I can open up a smoothie shop, or I think I can open up a sandwich shop, or, something along those lines where it's going to be 1,000 square feet or 1,200 square feet of space. You're considered a small business. So, you're dealing with, hopefully you have a really good landlord, and definitely vet your landlord out, just like your landlord's vetting you out to see who you are. Know who you're getting into business with, because he may not be in your pocket or in your drawer, but if you're in his building, he's got influence on your business.
And then you definitely probably want to investigate if there's been numerous businesses in this location and they've all kind of moved out or failed. Why? Did that have something to do with the landlord? Did it have something to do with the location? You may want to reach out to those prior owners, try to reach out to them and say, hey, what was it about this
We just
place?
went through this whole process because, again, we're open in the Gas Lamp Hotel in Old City. But to your point, we're actually, our commercial space in the front, we're actually have a juicery coming in there. Right. And, he's got multiple locations. That's all he wants to focus on, right? He doesn't need a big size. He made his goals very clear. It's a first time for us. So kind of we vetted each other, let him know what our business plan was, and he let us know and found the perfect marriage. And we'll see what happens. But, I mean, yeah, we'll come back and see. We'll have him on the show, but he doesn't want to own any of the bricks, right? He wants to open multiple locations, gyms, bar, wherever he can get his little 900 square foot spot and sell his juices. That's what it's going to do. And his business plan was awesome.
And I think it's apples and oranges. I think, again, there's people like my grandfather and my father who truly see and appreciate the value in owning the bricks and own as much land as you possibly can. Some may say that that's a lost art. I know in real estate, you look around and more people seem to be renting. And that was even before COVID and,
It takes a lot of money to buy commercial buildings nowadays.
And I think that in today's day and age, people do like being fluid. Some people like being able to get up and go when they're ready. And I think that owning the bricks is a 30-year commitment.
I was just going to say, I like your business model here. You pushed all the chips in and said, screw this. Like, I'm not going to half-ass this thing. I'm not half-stepping here.
Yeah.
We're all in.
And, with my experience, the way that it ended up 5 years later after we bought the building was, COVID hits. And the business is really struggling to make it worth it to run the business. How about we dissolve the business and now
the second location,
in the Manayunk location? How about instead of we've put everything we can into making this business work. It's really not working as well as we need it to. let's dissolve the business, take a deep breath, empty it out, and now we're going to rent it. And now what just went from a huge headache, a money pit, frustration, blame here, blame there. What's the problem? What's not the problem? How do we fix it? It's a good product. It's a good area. Where did we go wrong? It's okay. You know what? It's just not working.
Step back, pivot, pull
You
it out.
must have been doing something right, because your dad then asked you to come up and help expand the main location and then take over more responsibilities at the main location.
Right. So I'm speaking more to more recent events. So 2019, I go up there, and for a year, everything was good. And COVID hits, and now, Manayunk struggle. Philly is struggling. Restaurants are struggling.
Philly was brutal on restaurants.
Everybody's really in uncharted territory, and that took a big toll on our Manayunk business.
But putting those years in there, where you were sacrificing, you're living in an apartment, you got that thing up and running. Your dad clearly saw something in what you were doing, where he's like, all right,
I would imagine.
I have a good sergeant now that I can pass this on to, and now he can become the captain.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a question for him, but I would say that.
Clearly, because he did it. I mean, 100%.
A lot of times
your actions speak louder than words.
It's fair. And I didn't take it lightly that I was asked to do it. So that was the reason that when I was asked, I didn't try to do Manayunk and Conshohocken at the same time. I knew that this was going to take everything that I had, and
because you knew what he was asking you.
Drawing off the experience of going into Manayunk and living there and doing that fit out, running that business, I kind of understood the boots on the ground theory of if I'm going to do this, it has to be done right, and it's going to require everything. I'm not going to be able to run another business day to day. And so that's when we turned that business over, and I moved up to Conshohocken, and I wasn't in Manayunk on a day-to-day basis. And so seeing that, go ahead.
But the obvious point now, the Manayunk business, the obvious pro is you own the business dissolves. You still have the landlord business.
The other four units are rented out.
You have rented out. Now you have another small business and wants to come in, has a great concept, get started just like your family got started, and you can pivot back and expand even more from HQ, your headquarters, more or less.
100%. Okay. Yeah. That's.
Now, I guess that was the stepping stone, and your dad is your dad golfing more now, and you're doing more of the stuff?
Absolutely. He's enjoying his time. Like I said, he's there every morning. We kind of meet in the morning, go through whatever we need to go through, and then he can do whatever he wants. He can go golfing if he wants to go golfing. He can sit there and break balls if he wants to sit there and break balls. And he
can do whatever he wants, because he has a good person in place that he's replaced himself in you, kind of. And I mean, there's a lot to be said there. And third generation business, the numbers are staggering on the failure rate. In just from first to second, and then second to third, the numbers are staggering.
And I understand it. I think it's very easy to be comfortable. Your third generation, and I'll be the first to say the hard work was done before I was born and even before I was an adult. So I'd be the first one to give a lot of the credit to why we're successful to my grandfather and my father, who worked 90 hours a week. When I was in high school, when I was in middle school, my dad worked 80 to 90 hours a week, nonstop. He missed sporting events. He missed weddings. He missed things because his priorities were very clear. And I think at the time I understood, but I didn't. And now looking back, I don't need to do that because he did that. So now it falls on me in the third generation to say, okay, this is one area that I can't just look at him and mirror it, because I could go in there and pound the pavement for 80 hours a week, but the business wouldn't succeed anymore because I do that. I need to find new innovative ways to grow the business.
That was my next question to you. I mean, look, you're a super humble guy. I know when you're off camera, you wouldn't take credit for much, but taking that business from where it was and not screwing it up, number one, had to be a pressure in itself, I would think, right? I mean, this is a great, successful name, family business, but getting that and not overdoing it like a lot of people do and just totally fumbling the ball and then keeping it fresh, innovative. Like, so what's next for Franzone's? You guys expanded the bar, expanded the seating area. I mean, it is a happening spot for, all graduations. That's our Friday night hookup spot. But what's next? I mean, you guys are now canning the sauce.
We are, yeah. We started canning the sauce about 6 months ago, which means that basically you can buy Franzone sauce at our location only right now. Eventually, we will be able to hopefully get our sauce into some grocery stores and distribute online.
There's a whole different level limitations there, right? With health department stuff and licensing.
Just starting to scratch the surface on. So I wanted to, we're learning how to do it. We're learning how to do it in a big way, in a bulk way. Right now it's, we're doing about 48 cans at a time, which takes about 4 hours in total to get done. Is that kind of like your baby? Like you pitched that was something I came up with, just kind of looking around online, going to different markets and just, obviously.
Now, was there pushback at all? Like, what are we doing that? Or was your dad kind of like, you know what, cool?
It's more of a cool. Some of it is like
he doesn't understand it, but okay, whatever.
Yeah, some of it is that look like, go ahead, do that if you want to do that. Probably
same thing with social media. I'm sure you came in and started doing social media.
Yeah.
And the old men are like, what the fuck are you doing?
So social media is interesting because personally, I'm not huge on social media. Like, I don't have a huge presence personally. But in the last year, we've hired somebody. And that was something that when I brought that to him, he's like, well, you can do it. And I was like, dude, like, I don't think you understand. This is somebody's full-time job. People are doing this full-time now.
And they'll be way better than me at it.
Right. Like, this is just like if you asked me to go fix your car. Like, it's not what I do. You know what I'm saying?
And this is how the younger consumer shops. I mean, that's the reality of it all. I mean, there's, our generation that knows the name, right? There's a bunch of 20-somethings moving into Conchi that may not know the name. And why would they go there as opposed to Pizza Time? Because now you got to stay, relevant on social media, which is.
And then you got to get on like that One Bite app, and you got to have like,
delivery services and all that stuff.
Kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that was stuff that, when I came in a couple of years ago, explaining to him that, listen, we might have to give them a few points per order, but there's this concept of it's good for business. You may not be able to say, well, I'm selling a pizza and I want $20 in cash. And that's how it was done up until, the last 10 years. Now it's a little bit more about something like this, sitting down with two guys that you trust to discuss, what it's like. Hiring somebody to do social media.
Those delivery apps are weird because when you look at the money that you spend on it, like my cheap ass will look at it afterwards and be like, why are we spending that money on that? But the convenience of it is we're at a location right now. There's a baseball field across the street that my son plays at and my daughters play at the softball fields. We're there and we're like, all right, this game's gonna be wrapping up in 30 minutes. Like, and my wife will like order something on Grubhub and have it there waiting for it. Like, it's getting delivered when we're going to get home, and you don't have to call. It's all loud outside. So there's the advantage there. The younger people, they don't even like calling restaurants. They don't like talking to people. So they want to go on an app and just order their food, boom, right there. And they don't give a shit that it costs those other fees there that are involved.
100%. And it's funny because my dad was like, why would someone pay an extra $10?
They do though.
And I'm like, I can't answer why.
But that's the behavior of the consumer, right?
If you don't get on that train, like that train's going to leave you behind.
Correct. It goes back to when they started taking credit cards. I mean, how many places did you go in that didn't take credit cards for the first, for so long, and now
you can't even pay with cash anywhere.
Right.
It's totally backwards.
Except for my favorite deli down the street, that's only cash, baby.
What's that?
T&F.
Oh yeah,
only cash.
I respect those places more than anything.
They're great, man. So now from the real estate standpoint, is there plans ever to jump back in and say, hey, maybe we have to expand locations, or at the very least, you'll have another real estate asset? Because again, you still have the Manayunk asset, but now you're expanding into different operations. Do you plan on, right now, or is there anything cooking up from potentially new locations, anything like that, or even something for the jarring and canning process?
Yeah, right now there are no expansion talks. I can say that.
That's a confident. It's smart because you
as-
can focus on the business.
Yeah,
which
as it
is
relates
great.
to more restaurants, there's not much. There's no talk at all. As it relates to real estate, I think you guys can agree that conversation never ends. You're always talking. You're always looking. There's always stuff that's interesting. And the market's always moving. So
is that something that Dad is teaching you more of now? That now you have the main location, it's thriving, it's doing well. You have the other location where it's completely rented out. Is that something that Dad is transitioning you into more now, teaching you more of the other real estate that his father bought and he bought, and managing that? Is he teaching you more of that now?
Yeah, we have absolutely gotten into that this year, and obviously the last 5 years is just kind of gone by like that.
So he really wants to golf more now.
Yeah, he's definitely.
That's great.
Yeah, he's working on getting his handicap down for sure.
Good for him, man.
And again, I gotta humbly say that I'm able to play golf, and I'll hopefully be able to coach my kids, and hopefully that.
Well, you have those family member type employees that we talked about earlier. You have all those people in place. That gives you that ability to do that.
100%. And I think being great to them and them being great to us is almost always the number one goal. Obviously, the customers are number one, and the business goes nowhere without the customers and the support of the community. But taking care of your people, I think, is number one. And there are still employees of ours and, their family. They worked for my grandfather, and now they work for my dad. And now them and I work together. And that's kind of the goal, is to just keep that thing rolling. And, I would say they work for my father, because at one point in time, my father was back there on a Friday night sweating and working and right next to them in the thick of the fire. And so was I when I was 7 years old. And I think that's something they don't forget. They don't take lightly. There's not many places you go where, you look around and this guy's been there for 35 years and this guy's been here for 20 years and now his son works here.
Our friends' kids are starting to work at your shop, which is crazy to me. It's like how fast time is moving. How do you keep yourself? 30 plus employees is got to be a daunting, for me, that would be a scary concept. How do you keep yourself kind of focused? You're well spoken, obviously. You don't seem stressed out at all. What do you do to keep yourself kind of locked in there personally?
Yeah, well, number one is I have a great general manager who is lights out as it relates to handling employees, as it relates to handling problems, bringing things to me, knowing what he can handle. And the two of us, I think, do a great job of working well together through a lot of that stuff. I don't believe that's a one-person job, for one. Outside of the shop, I hit the gym often. As you guys know, we see each other there a lot of yoga. Been playing a little bit of golf, so hopefully getting the handicap down. And I have a great fiance who is more than understanding with the lifestyle that I was born and bred into, and now that I'm trying to carry forward. And she is my number one support, my number one inspiration. As you guys know, with families, looking forward to building a family with her, and that's motivation enough to kind of keep this thing rolling.
Hell yeah, man. So you're local, you're in the Conshohocken area. You actually just bought in the Conchie area.
We did, yep.
As well. Mm-hmm. So you're planting roots down there. This guy's for real, dude. He's no joke, no bullshit. I love everything about it. Man, it's so nice to hear about your grandfather. Sounded like a brilliant human being. And your dad as well. Your business is super successful. And again, this is just a Manayunk guy coming up. And you said it perfectly earlier in the episode. We are sure as hell stuck in our ways. And I go up, I'm never eating that sweet sauce. I don't like it. I love it, dude. It's good stuff.
Appreciate
and
it,
again,
brother.
my boys love it. My wife loves it. So, man, and the sauce, that's so great. I hope you scale that up because people got to try it.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Kids
coming.
really like the sweet sauce.
Yeah. It's
They love the sweet sauce.
Yeah, but then honestly, going into the bar it's always crowded. You're not drinking at all anymore. But I'll stop in, grab a pizza, grab some to go.
A full year now.
Full year. Congratulations.
Nice. Congratulations.
But your shop, the bar's a great area, fun area. Speaking about after our rounds of playing golf and things like that.
Are you doing like pies too, where people can take them and bake them at home and make their own with the sauce? Is that one of your plans?
Yeah, we do create your own pizzas. Now it's all fresh ingredients, so we don't have kits per se to throw in the refrigerator or throw in the freezer yet. But you can do take-home kits. We started that during COVID. So fresh piece of dough, fresh cheese, fresh sauce, and that night you can go home and you and your kids can
I
eat
did
pizza.
not know that. That's a
I've
great
heard from
idea.
several businesses in the food industry that the water around here has a lot to do with why the dough is good.
I agree. And I'm not too sure what about it, but I do know that it's definitely a big
Because
contributor.
people have tried to take these type of businesses like down to Florida and they don't work. It doesn't taste the
West
same.
Coast, different.
That's
Just-
a real,
it's-
that's
it's
a
the
real
water.
thing. Huh?
There's businesses that have like, Philly style pizza, New York style pizza, cheesesteaks, bagels. They have water shipped in from here out to there to make their businesses actually perform well.
Well, whatever you're doing, man, keep it up. We really appreciate your time coming on and chatting with us, giving a real estate look, but a business aspect of it, some family into it. I mean, the family part of it, your business is phenomenal. I think that's why over everything, that's probably why your business is as great as it is.
Now, where can people follow on social media the business?
Franzone's Pizzeria. It's at Franzone's Pizzeria.
All right. Now, if there's any of our listeners that want to have some more restaurant specific questions and real estate, relating to food service, are you available to take emails or anything from those listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. They can DM the Franzone's Pizzeria page. I'm constantly on that, checking it.
And please reach out to us too, so we can, bring your questions to Charles. We'll make sure he comes on next time and brings us a couple pizzas and some of that sauce. But really, I mean, a lot of our listeners will want to know, like, hey, how did he get started? How is he so successful? And I mean, he's young. He's got a ton of time left to kind of show us what he got. So,
Yeah, absolutely. We're just getting started.
yeah, man, sky's the limit. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on. And again, for Charles Franzone, third generation of Franzone's Pizzeria and Sports Bar, Nick Cessna, I'm Ryan Dolan for another episode of the Atomic Real Estate Podcast. We'll see you next time.
This episode is made possible by our friends over at Milady Landscaping. Milady Landscaping is your go-to service for all of your residential and commercial landscaping and hardscaping needs. You can reach them on Instagram at Milady Landscaping, MiladyLandscaping.com, and 267-836-2102. Milady Landscaping handles all of our properties, my personal and investment properties.
If you enjoyed our episode, please consider supporting the show by rating and reviewing the podcast. Also, check us out on Instagram at Atomic Real Estate Show to find out when new shows drop and to participate in our community Q&As. The Atomic Real Estate Show was brought to you by Direct Subs. Direct Subs is the #1 place for real estate investors to connect with local contractors for their flips, rentals, renovations, and new construction projects.